Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host as usual, and obviously welcome back to the show. Today's episode 210 of the show, and before we get started, I'm ready to be house cleaning quick around here because, well, you guys don't like to do it around here, so it only makes sense that we do it, so let's just get on with the house cleaning. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening. It really does mean a lot to me that you guys constantly take time of your days to, well, download these episodes, to share these episodes, to constantly keep letting me know how you feel, whether you like my stupid face or not, or you like my opinions or not. To be honest, I really appreciate it because you guys constantly interact with me, whether it be on the polls, even though, again, we didn't do a poll this week since the news. Well, it's kind of obvious what we're going to be talking about because it happened the day of recording. But overall, I do appreciate the interactions. I just appreciate you guys constantly supporting the show by downloading the episodes, by sharing the episodes, by leaving reviews of the show. To me, it just really means a lot to me. It really does. Because again, I've always mentioned I love doing the show. The show has always been a way for me to relax and just really talk about these things that I'm very passionate about and just things that I really enjoy talking about. And at the end of the day, it's just really fun. And, you know, we wouldn't have been doing this for 3 years now if we didn't enjoy doing it. At the same time, I also want to thank the Patreon backers as well for supporting the show. Again, thank you guys. You guys are greatly appreciated. And we'll talk about something else at the very end, but it's time to talk about, well, the thing that's going to be dominating the news cycle for the next coming weeks and probably months. And it's talking about the Apple event that took place on March 8th, or at the time of this recording. And this event, well, we knew what was going to happen, essentially. Let's just get this out of the way. We knew what was going to be shown off at this event. There was nothing new. There was no really big surprises. However, there were some, like for me, there were some surprises, which is mainly the last thing shown off since I didn't watch any of the leak videos that people, like there was a leak video made by John Prosser the day before the event that I didn't watch. I didn't even know it existed. And it genuinely surprised me. I felt surprised for once. I was like, wow. I actually watched one of these events and felt surprised because there was something I wasn't expecting. Even though I knew about this, like I had the idea of what this might have been since they had talked about it, a couple months back. I just didn't think we'd actually see it. So let's just talk about what mainly was shown off. Aside from the Apple TV Plus stuff and them announcing, the allowing them, or the MLB allowing them to stream baseball games on Apple TV Plus and then them making their own films. Let's talk about the actual products shown off at the event, which in total there were 4. 2 of them were lumped together, but we're just going to call them 4 for now. The first product was the refresh of the iPhone SE. Nothing really new here besides adding 5G, besides adding the A15 processor. They did mention that it will have better battery life, but, I still tell people if you're going to buy the iPhone SE model or, the iPhone, basically the phone that looks like the iPhone 7, you might as well buy the battery case for it. I think it's a must have, even though right now those cases are very hard to come by, especially trying to buy them new. So do with that as you will. I still think it's nice to have options. I get why people are mad. They're like, oh, the bezels, Touch ID, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. I think it's still better to have an option in this price range since, well, let's be real here, guys. You can't really complain about having options. Well, put it like this. People complain that Apple had no options for more affordable phones. They give you a more affordable option, and then people will still find a way to complain. I get it. You can get phones that maybe have more or look better. You get what I mean? Like, obviously there are trade-offs, but that's the whole point of buying what's right for you. You have to address the pros and cons with everything you buy, since That's the point of being an informed buyer, is you weigh the pros and cons of what you're buying. Does this suit your use case? Yes or no? And if it doesn't, okay, then it's just not the right fit for you. That doesn't mean it's not the right fit for somebody else, which is even more hilarious when we think about the next product, which is the iPad Air, which was the other product shown off. The iPad Air is definitely one of those interesting iPads because it's the middle of the line iPad. It's not the mini, or prime example, it's not the base iPad, but it's also not the pros. It's always been that more middle of the line portable iPad, like people that want a little bit of a bigger iPad but still light and portable. Even though for me, I still think the mini is the right size for a lot of people. I think for what you get out of it, I think the mini is the better value, in my opinion. Personally, that's my opinion. However, with the Air getting the refresh with the A15, or not the A15, correction, they actually put the M1 chip. So the same way how they did with the Pros, that they put the M1 chip in it. And that's essentially all we really got was the wide aside, the center stage technology, which primarily uses an ultra wide camera, and the M1 chip. There really wasn't that big of a difference with the new iPad Air. The fact that it's at the same price is really good. However, I will say my complaint is I've noticed Apple's been doing this more and more, especially with the iPads that are not the Pro model, that they seem hesitant to provide a 128 gigabyte storage option and just have 64 and 256. I personally think, and I've been seeing a lot of comments about this as well, like some people talking about it on social media, where it just seems like Apple's just trying to force you to buy the 256 model because they know the 64 gig is not enough, which I agree. I personally think tablets or all devices going forward should not have 64 gigabytes as base. I think it should be 128 as base. That is fair and reasonable. That 128 should be the bare minimum when it comes to phones and tablets, since I think that's the sweet spot for a lot of people. And if you need more, then yeah, 256. Because let's be real, homie, if you're using more than 120 gigabytes on your phone, I'm kind of worried about what you're doing. Even if you're taking a lot of photos, 128 should still be enough. Even playing games and stuff like that, 128 should be enough. Granted, I say that now, and we've already had phones with 1 terabyte of storage. So, be that as you will. To me, I think it's just Apple finding a way to price gouge you. Like when I bought my mini, I really wanted the mini. However, I did not want the 64 gigabyte base model, since I was like, look, I don't trust this one bit. I don't trust having 64 gigabytes. It sucks because they price gouge me into buying the higher model, but it's Apple. You know, you don't become a $2 trillion company without doing stuff like this. Like, they knew what they were doing. These homies were not dumb. They knew what they were doing. However, we get into the last two products, which to me were a surprise, but I understand for some people they weren't, since they were already leaked beforehand. We're talking about the potential, and I say this potentially because this is where I start going into my opinion a little bit, but we get the unveiling of the Mac Studio and the new Studio Display. And this is where I am very interested, but I also understand why a lot of people are worried, specifically the iMac Pro users. This is where I say my opinion. Personally, I think the iMac Pro is dead. I think that was a product that Apple realized, hey, it doesn't make a lot of logical sense to have this product. And with the announcement of the Mac Studio and the Studio Display, it kind of makes it seem like that's what Apple was going in that direction, because they even gave a tease at the end that the Mac Pro is next, that's the last Mac in the lineup, essentially killing off the iMac Pro unofficially, that yes, the iMac Pro is dead, that it will not happen. So what is the Mac Studio? What is this new product? I think the best way to describe it, if I'm just being genuinely honest with you guys, is that it basically looks like 3 Mac Mini stacked on top of each other, because this thing is a chunky son of a gun. It's, it's pretty chunky, bro. Like, this thing is pretty big. But the main benefit that comes with this is a new processor that, as they've alluded to at the end of the presentation, talking about the Mac Pro, they announced the final processor in the M1 lineup, which is the M1 Ultra. And the main benefit with this processor is that it's a 20-core CPU, 64-core GPU, and it can cap out at 128 gigabytes of unified memory. And essentially, this processor is just 2 M1 Maxes taped together. I know it sounds weird to say it that way, but it essentially is two M1 Maxes tethered together, operating as one single chip in perfect unity. And obviously, well, based off Apple's very vague, as usual, performance metrics, yes, this thing obviously outperforms the M1 Max. It outperforms every M1 processor by a county mile. And Apple still doesn't give us actual hard by the numbers of anything because let's be real here. They always like to keep it vague. So let's just get those benchmarks. I think it's going to be interesting once we see the benchmarks. However, the Studio, it's weird to say it, the Mac Studio is a very interesting product for a lot of professionals because let's be real here, guys. This is not for the average Joe. You guys need to understand this. This thing is complete overkill for everyone that is not a professional. I'm just being honest with you. There's a reason why this thing is advertised as a studio product. If you're just in your room for editing videos for fun, you probably shouldn't be buying this, guys. I think I shouldn't have to repeat myself. You don't need this. This is a high-end professional tool designed for professionals and professionals only. Unless you're just somebody that has some really deep pockets and you just want to buy one and use it to watch Chrome or YouTube on Chrome, then God have mercy on you. But what are the main benefits with this new Studio Mac, or Mac Studio if you want to call it? Well, it's called the Mac Studio, but I kind of like saying Studio Mac. But the Mac Studio, essentially, the main benefits are the 10 gigabyte Ethernet port on the back. In total, having 6 Thunderbolt 4 ports, so 6 USB-C ports. Having 2 USB-As, 1 HDMI port, and to be honest, it looks very impressive. I like the idea of it. I like the size. I like the form factor. To me, it just feels right as a very powerhouse studio that's what it is. It's meant to be in a studio. They wouldn't call this thing the Mac Studio if they were like, oh yeah, bro, just take this with you wherever you want to go. Yeah, bro, totally. No, homie. This thing is staying in a studio where it belongs. It's supposed to, not be mobile. It's still small enough that you could obviously take this with you easily if you wanted to, or easy to move around. But you should also be mindful this is designed for studio work. Same thing goes with the new Studio Display Xdr, which people have been asking for a long time because people have been wanting a more affordable option of the Pro Display XDR, which the Studio Display is that. The main benefit is that it's a 5K display with a webcam built inside of it, an 813 processor inside of it, and speakers for around $1,600. Now, I find it kind of funny that they gave you a stand with this thing, and it's actually a pretty decent stand based on what we saw. I find that absolutely hilarious given the price tag of the Pro Display XDR. However, some people have been mentioning that the main downside with the display is the fact that for $1,600, the fact that this thing is a 60 hertz display, no mini LED, I'm like, yeah, I can see why that'd be a deal breaker. However, for the value that you're getting out of it, it looks like a good value. I feel like we just have to wait and see it actually being used by the general public and just seeing how people compare it to other displays in the price categories. To be honest, the Mac Studio is very interesting. Not even just the Mac Studio, but I'd say the M1 Ultra as it's by itself, especially because we know this is going into the upcoming Mac Pro. They already teased that they're working on a Mac Pro, or that it will be shown off this year. We know we're going to see the new Mac Pro. My concern is going to be the modularity of the Mac Pro, because that's always been the benefit of the Mac Pro for professionals, like people that drop these fat, and I mean fat racks. Yes, these people want modularity. They want to be able to upgrade their system, change out things if they need to change it out. I'm very concerned to see how this plays out, given what we know about the M1 chips and given about the architecture. It's going to be interesting. Personally, I don't even think there will be a performance difference since, from the Mac Studio to the Mac Pro, if they're using the exact same processors, because they even announced there will be no more M1 processors, or specifically in the M1 line. So the next one they're probably going to start when they unveil the MacBook Air 2 and entry-level MacBook Pro, then yes, it's probably going to be the M2 chip. To me, I'm excited to see how this turns out. I'm excited to see professionals get their hands on this and really run some benchmarks, because like I said, the fact that Apple is saying that this thing can outperform a 3090 easily, no matter what, I'm just like, okay, let's calm down here. Because they talk about power efficiency and things like that with desktop. And I'm like, guys, you have to realize at the end of the day, when it comes to desktop, people really don't care about power efficiency. They really don't care one donkey dick about it. When it comes to laptops, oh yeah. Now, that is going to be interesting to see the M1 Ultra inside of a laptop form factor. Like, could they be crazy and refresh the 16-inch and the new 14-inch and just add the M1 Ultra as an option? Maybe, who knows? At the end of the day, I think the most important takeaways from this event are the Mac Studio, the Studio Display, and the new M1 Ultra chip, and going forward of how this is going to affect, well, the launch of the Mac Pro, because that is the last Mac on the lineup, since they basically killed off the iMac Pro, since that's the whole point of the Studio Display. That's the whole point of it, is that people wanted a more modular design rather than just an all-in-one powerful iMac. To be honest, I don't blame them. And I think it's going to be exciting to see how, well, just being honest, how it all turns out. Like, because it's easy to speculate what might happen. We just need to see actual performance. We need to see actual numbers of these products, actually in the real world. I'm interested to see if the SE's battery life is any better. I'm interested to see how the Air compares to the refresh that we got a couple years back, maybe like 1 or 2 back. But most importantly, I'm excited to see how the Studio Mac, or the Mac Studio, performs along with the Studio Display Xdr, or the Studio Display is probably the better way to describe it. I'm personally intrigued, and I think a lot of professionals are going to be very happy with what they saw today, or they are going to see once they watch the event, or you're just going by my commentary, which either way, I greatly appreciate it. At the end of the day, guys, it's exciting. I know it kind of felt bland because, to be honest, I kind of almost fell asleep during the presentation. Well, I was on the elliptical watching it, so falling asleep would probably be a bad idea. But thank you guys so much for love. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you for, sitting through and listening to today's episode. I really, really do appreciate it, guys. At the end of the day, thank you guys for everything that you guys do. I hope you guys continue to be safe. Hope you guys continue to have a wonderful week and weekend. I know spring break is coming up for a lot of college students, so I hope you guys have a wonderful spring break, a wonderful trip to enjoy time with your family, your friends. Hopefully try not to get killed or do anything stupid, because let's be real here, the world is still a weird place, guys. I know I'm excited for my trip, since, as you guys are, for those that are aware, I recently did an episode talking about what my plans are for spring break, where I'm doing a missions trip with my church here in town. And I'm very excited to see how this turns out. I'm interested to see what experiences I might have. I'm interested to see, the people that I interact with. But most importantly for me, I know that this trip will be a very good growing experience for me. I know that this trip will help me grow in my faith and help me to really just gain a better understanding, or even renewing my perspective that I feel like over time has become a little bit more bitter, a little bit more cynical because of my experiences of what I've been through. I'm praying and hoping for safe travels. At the same time, I'm also praying that, well, if I'm just being honest with you guys, that God would give me a renewed perspective, one that is more focused on Him and more willing to be less stubborn about trying to make my ways work, because my ways will never work, and rather be more open-handed with God and just really be more accepting to what He has for me. And I'm excited for that. Just for those that, if you're inclined to do so, you're more than welcome to donate to the page. If you want to go listen to that episode, that episode is Real Talk, where we're just doing a special announcement. If you want to donate to that, you can. Even if you're just like message me saying, hey bud, I just heard what you talked about. I'm just, praying and hoping that everything goes well for you. I hope you have safe travels and are safe in New York. Like, to me, that's all that would really matter. But again, guys, I love you guys to death. Thank you guys so much for your love and support. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Leave a comment down below whether you like today's episode, whether you don't like it. Let me know what you think about the new product shown off. Is there anything that interests you in the lineup? And, leave a like or hit the subscribe button, or, the usual song and dance routine that YouTubers do when it comes to, getting you to subscribe to their channels. Hit the like button, hit the dislike button, hit the subscribe button, press the bell button for all the notifications. The usual song and dance routine. But As always, guys, I love you guys to death. Please have yourselves a wonderful week and weekend. And as always, don't do anything dumb. I love you guys. Please be safe. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.